was upsetting and it was hard, but I don't regret going through anything I went through.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, welcome to the Recovery Project, where we get to listen, learn, and be inspired by some of the challenges that people face. And today, another great story to hear. And I'm going to pass it on to Mel Abbott, who will introduce our next guest.
Today we have Kesia. Welcome to our show. Terribly excited to have Kesia here because she has had long COVID very badly, as you're going to hear, and she is all better. And it's such a topical thing at the moment with COVID having just done its huge surge in New Zealand. We are going to see a whole lot more people with long COVID coming out of the woodwork in the next few weeks and months. And we really wanted to share this story to help the people out there who are getting that real feeling of panic of, oh my gosh, I've got long COVID, what can I do? There is hope, there is a way out. So welcome, Kezia.
Hi, thanks for having me. So when I caught COVID in January 2020,
and that was in London that you caught it?
Yeah. I was in London in January 2020. I'd previously been there for since October 2019, doing my OE. The pandemic had hit, and I just lived my life thinking I'm invincible. COVID's never going to catch me. And
you're young and healthy and living the best life ever.
Literally could not have been in better shape. Now looking back, I think my body thought different. But yeah, caught COVID in January 2020, and much like Richie's video, I watched that actually recently. That virus was the virus that just shook me, and it rocked my whole body. It rocked my world. I had every symptom under the sun, and as the weeks went on, got to week number 1, I was like, okay, give it 10 days. I'm just feeling this way because this is what COVID is. Got to week number 2, and my friends started going for walks again, and I thought, yeah, same, I can do that. Tried to walk down the road to the shops, couldn't even make it to the corner. It's awful. Started crying, felt why couldn't I do this? My body is
so when you say you couldn't make it, was that because your body felt so weak, or you were so out of breath? Or
both. I just felt weak. I felt out of breath. I felt like I had on day 2 of COVID. As I was walking, I just remember thinking to myself, how could my body do this to me? Over that time, my body just felt like it got weaker and weaker. There was a pattern. I would get up, I would force myself to do something. I'd force myself to walk to the kitchen to make some food, put on a smile, and then go back into bed and just flop. I just remember my body just like falling into this. Like, I just felt like I could just sit there and just lay down. And I think the most I slept for in a day was about 18 hours. And waking up and then just being like, I'm still tired. Even just thinking about it, talking about it, which I haven't done in a while, my body just immediately brings back all these feelings.
Yeah.
How was I even there, and how did I even overcome that?
Totally.
It just
let's move you forward things. I don't want to risk you spending too long thinking about it and your body remembering too well. So come forward then too. I know that you had to leave England. You were too unwell to stay. You came back to New Zealand, stayed with your parents for quite a few months trying to recover. It wasn't happening. And then that's when you contacted me. Take us forward to that part so we can get you on a nice upward path again.
And my life literally changed from doing that course.
What helped you and your body to get out of long COVID?
Huge factors, and what I still even do to this day was the whole spring cleaning of my life. It wasn't just about, I had left London, but it wasn't enough just to leave London. Immediately I'd felt a weight lifted off my shoulders by being back with my family, being back where I needed to be. But also just my life in general, the way I started to view things. And, when I would wake up and I would stop doing those patterns of laying there in the morning and just ruminating. I remember back in February, I would lay there, I would wake up, open my eyes, that heaviness would set in, and I'd think, today's another day of just feeling. And
I remember that from chronic fatigue days.
And it was awful. And whereas now I wake up and I don't even give it a second thought. And that's what I mean by changing my thought pattern process. Every time my body gives me, and not it's like not that I'm giving in to small things and ruminating. It's just listening, going, well, what do I need today? What do I need, you know, to just rest for the first hour, but just rest, not I'm resting so I can do the rest of the day or else I'm not going to be okay, but actually just resting for the sake of it and not giving in to old patterns, because easily I would have been able to rest and be like, oh, 4 more hours or whatever, or just lay there. Whereas this is literally just rest. It's just what it is. It's not negative. It's not positive. It's just rest.
I noticed as well, because you know there was you and another girl in the same group with long COVID, which was really interesting. And what I could observe in both of you was you were in the most supercharged stress response when I met you both. Like you were both talking like this fast. It was so fast you could barely kind of get your words out because it was just so fast. It was like just really heightened stress, and so your body was not able to heal in that state. And it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but for both of you, it was so hugely traumatic to have been overseas and have caught the mystery virus and to have been so ill. And I don't know for you, but certainly for the other girl, she ended up, you know, in hospital thinking she was dying because her breathing was so bad. Did you also have patches where you thought I might die from this?
Yeah, it was definitely, so while I had COVID, my dad's brother had COVID at the same time in South Africa, and my mum was messaging me and him, and unfortunately he passed away from COVID.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was on day 10 and I was on day 8.
Oh.
And yeah, it was yeah, it was.
So it's terrifying.
Yeah, it was really hard to go through that and not be there with my family.
Totally.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. Let the emotion be there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, how terrifying, and also dealing with grief, compounding your experience, and then all the stress of not being able to get home with quarantine and borders. And
that looking back, honestly, I don't see how I couldn't have been in that state. Like, it would have been a miracle if I
Absolutely. And I think that level of stress response is quite a component in long COVID. I mean, I see a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and that is a bad, real physical illness. Having gone through it myself, I know how serious that is. Long COVID seemed to be everything that chronic fatigue is, plus so much more, because you've also got all the breathlessness and the serious physical lung damage and heart problems, and you know, and a lot of extra physical components as well as the chronic fatigue ones. And my sense was for both of you, being able to calm your whole body down was a massive part of it.
Huge. And I taught myself, and even through just mindfulness alone, was breathing through my nose was a huge technique, and everyone takes for granted, but I'd never been able to properly breathe through my nose. And I noticed even to this day, so 2 days ago with the change of season, I must have been breathing through my mouth overnight, and I woke up and I felt breathless. I felt, you know, like my body was like, well, we've been here before. And immediately I started breathing through my nose. I started doing everything that I knew would help me. And immediately my chest felt clear. You know, I started doing my stretches.
Also found interesting was, you know, we know your illness began because you caught COVID and it became long COVID, but we were also exploring, but why did it become long COVID? And obviously there were, you know, current issues of how stressful that was to be so sick in a foreign country, and with your uncle as well. But we also identified that there was a longer term pattern in your life that was also made you possibly more susceptible to getting long COVID. Are you happy to share a bit about that with us?
Yeah. So basically, ever since I can remember, and that's another really dangerous saying, because ever since you can remember sets you up for a lot of things. I had been told, and I, you know, really felt that every time a sickness was there or something would happen, it was me and I would get it. And so I even remember saying when COVID hit, I'm going to get it.
So it was breaking apart a lifetime belief system as well, that your body can be naturally healthy, naturally self-healing.
For sure. That's the pattern I had. And while I was in the UK, again, now I can say this looking back, there were so many signs my body was telling me in the December before catching COVID even. I went to hospital with some chest pains, and they sent me home and they said, I think you just need to, it's the cold, or maybe it's anxiety or something. Like, they didn't give me a concrete answer.
And fascinating story, and so many nuggets that I've picked up, but one of those ones were clearly around belief system. Did that belief system transfer to anything else in your life?
The old one or the new one?
Yeah, the old.
Yeah. So again, I had never put myself into the category, and this is what I'm also trying to break free from still to this day, because it is quite hard, is my perfectionism. I would always be aiming for the top, and even if I didn't get there, I'd be happy, but there'd always be a but. Expect that I had to do all of these things. And I would always spread myself really thin. I remember my friends telling me, Kezia, you don't have to do all of these things. And then I said, oh no, but it's fine. I want to take you here and do this for your child and blah, blah, blah. But they just told me, you don't have, no one's asking you.
And how do you do with all that perfectionism and being so busy now? What's changed since the switch?
So a big thing, and I actually told someone this last week, is a huge thing that Mel taught me, is that I always, even for little things like, do I need to go up the road or something, I always make sure it's a yes, yes, and instead of like a yes, no. And that really stuck with me. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'll just do this, this, and this, and then I can just rest in the holidays. No, you still make time for that every day. And your holidays can just be days that you get to spend off school. They don't have to be this, like, I'm stressed, now I'm on holiday and I can come down.
It's not sustainable, because that's what breeds illness, is when people are so out of balance and they're so stressed. So, and being able to take all that from having had to go through that long COVID journey, and now being able to live the rest of your life in such a more balanced way, is going to help you in such a long-term way beyond just getting well from long COVID.
Quite an amazing story, and how you use the tools in today's world. I think that's fascinating. Well done.
Thank you.
How long after the switch do you think you would say, I don't have long COVID anymore?
Honestly, I would say that when that long term kicked in, for me, that was like January.
So that was 2 or 3 months?
3 months, yeah.
So I want to touch on some important parts, particularly for, I think, your generation that are dealing with university and stress. What are some of the tools that you've got from the switch, but what are the tools you're using regularly to deal with stress response?
Hugely would be my deep breathing. What I like to do is box breathing. I find that just immensely helpful. And then even breathing in for 4, and I'm getting better because now I can nearly breathe in for 5, and also having a strict bedtime, or just a strict laptops down. I used to be someone who used to work till I'd say 1 a.m., 12 a.m. Now I'm like 10 p.m. maximum. I always make sure I have breakfast, and I always make sure it's really filling. After the switch, for a while, I was doing the kefir yogurt on an empty stomach, but now I also do just lemon and honey on an empty stomach, and I find that really sets me up. I don't drink coffee, so I drank coffee anyway, so that didn't really matter. Yeah, so it's more just like diet changes, bedtime, and breathing for me, breathing through my nose. Which,
nice. Excellent. Well, that's super inspiring. Yeah, because there's going to be so many long COVID people coming up in the next few months. And what would be your advice to someone who's watching this, who's got had COVID in the last sort of month or 2 of this wave, and they're like, oh, this is not getting better as fast as it should have, maybe I'm going to be a long COVID person? What would you say to them?
Oh, I think the main thing is listen to your body and yourself. Don't gaslight yourself, or don't let anyone tell you to just get up and do something. I think it's more than just getting up and getting out of bed. It's listening to your body and giving yourself time to recover. And when I say recover, that isn't just laying in bed. It's doing breathing. You can start all of these things early,
Yeah.
but to the best of your ability, and that's what's important. So yeah, giving yourself time to breathe, giving yourself time to think about times when you were feeling your best, because that was also another thing. Is I remember laying there and just being, you know, in a really down mood and just thinking, oh, I wish I could do this. And better than wishing I could do those things was remembering how I felt when I did those things. And so, you know, when I was on my bike and, you know, again, sounds silly, but the wind's in your hair and you feel fresh air and you get all those endorphins. That was such a powerful feeling, remembering how that feels. And that was another thing. It was just like re-envisioning how I feel, why I felt that way, but not wishing, you know, wishing long COVID away or wishing that I could get better, because that's not really helping anyone. It's just listening to yourself. If it's a big tip, if I can narrow it, listening to yourself, listening to your body, and remembering who you are when you felt your quote unquote best. Do not join Facebook groups or you know, groups who are there to help you when all they do is just complain and moan, and all you do is just match each other's symptoms. You know, symptom diaries and talking about symptoms every single day are just going to make your symptoms feel worse.
Totally. The other girl who was in your group who also recovered from long COVID really quickly, she wanted to share her recovery story on one of those long COVID Facebook groups, and they wouldn't let her because they said, no, we can't give false hope to people. It's like, but you know, it's not false hope. This girl has recovered. I'd love to see a Facebook group that is specifically for people to share what got them better from long COVID to inspire others. You know, that would be a great group, you know, if people were going there to share what works, what actually helps in their recovery, because there must be lots of things that help.
Exactly. And I know there's one group out there, and again, I'm not an endurance athlete, but it's an endurance athlete page that are specifically people who have long COVID or had long COVID. And on there, you really notice the mindset of people who are endurance athletes, or who are professional athletes, because they give themselves time to rest and recover, and they do all these things that we're talking about today. And those are the things that propel them forward. And they have that mindset, and that's a mindset we could all learn from.
Yeah, endurance athletes have a great mindset. They do very well at the switch because they're so motivated. They've got so much self-belief.
And it's picked up not only through what you've been through, Kezia, it's more to do with the underlying issues as well. You know, there is so many other things of benefit than getting through long COVID, because there's you know, emotions that need to be dealt with, your expectations opposed to appreciation, the journey in which you go through, understanding confidence and belief. So there's many myriad of things that we get the learnings from. It's not just long COVID, you know. And I think that's the benefit for what we're talking today in terms of dealing with stress, you know, having that connection with your body, mind, body, and soul. And I think it's really important that this story needs to be put out there, because it's something that we could learn from. Breathing is clearly one of the most topical ones, I think, currently, you know, and I'm a big Wim Hofer from way back. So so I'm a Wim Hofer from way back. So I get how that pretty much dictates how you feel, you know. And so that's a lovely tool that you just thrown out there today. And it was something that, that's certainly a massive tool that I use in my daily ritual. So awesome. So well-rounded you are. How old are you anyway? How old are you, may I ask?
26, turning 27.
Wow.
Yeah. So
phenomenal.
Big journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not the journey you were expecting when you headed off to London on your big OE adventure 2 months before a pandemic strikes.
No.
So hopefully when you finish your degree, you'll be able to go and do another OE and have a very different experience.
It was upsetting and it was hard, but I don't regret going through anything I went through.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Everything that I've gone through made me, again, cliche, but who I am today.
Well, that's a beautiful, inspiring, uplifting moment for us to finish on, isn't it? Yeah, to actually have come out the other side of that journey now in a place of total acceptance of it. It's not the OE you were expecting, but you've learnt so much that's going to change the whole rest of your life. Thank you so much for sharing all this today, and we're looking forward to how many long COVID lives are going to be influenced by hearing your story today.
As I pass from dusk to dawn, I can see